Hi, and welcome to Mugful of Mimosas, the podcast where no one has time for proper stemware. So grab the closest cup, and honestly, I'm not even going to ask if it's clean because, sometimes just making the effort counts, right? Right. All right. And once you filled your cup with your drink of choice, you got to make sure that you don't spill your beverage, baby, because this economy is giving very 2008. So we don't have money to waste. I don't have money to waste. I don't know about you, but I don't think you do either. Anyway. So for today's episode, I'll be chatting with a really dear friend of mine and the officiant to my wedding, Jen Gowers, about spirituality and how it shows up in her everyday life and how it can maybe show up in yours. So get cozy and let's dive in. Hi.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Well, welcome to Mugful of Mimosas. I guess the first thing we'll do is tell us who you are. Introduce yourself. What do you want the world to know about you?
Sure. Well, I consider Elizabeth Jimenez Cadeau one of the best people on the planet. And she's a dear friend, and my name is Jen Gowers. And we've been friends a long time.
Very long time.
Very long time. We met in the education world. And I remain in that world. And Liz dabbles because they won't release her.
I actually, funnily enough, I declared that I'm done.
Okay, this is the moment.
I'm done. I'm done with education. I will consider continuing to consult in education, I think later, like when something else is established. But I think in order for me to bring it to fruition, I got to declare it. And I'm done.
Great.
Literally, my therapist asked me yesterday, she's like, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah, I'm done.
Because Liz gave a lot of beautiful work to education, and she has concluded that phase of her life as of this moment, dear listeners. So here you are witnessing that. She's all done.
From your lips, literally, to God's ears.
Speaking of,
which is a perfect literal segue into our topic today, which is spirituality. And honestly, I couldn't think of anybody else better to talk to about spirituality, because I feel like of all the people that I know in my life, like you are the most spiritual person that I know, but like I can't pin one religion on you, which makes you this like unicorn human. Yeah.
It's like the highest compliment you could pay me. I can't think of anything more important to me than spirituality. You know, like just what that looks like and feels like and means, and the idea that everybody can have and make their own is really important to me too. So I love that resonates for you. That
say more about that, because I feel like that's one of the reasons why I feel like I consider you like that person in my life, because not very many people feel that way. Most people are just like, oh, like you have to believe in God, and you have to believe in Buddha, and and I feel like you believe in both.
I mean, I think God and Buddha are amazing. I mean, I definitely came through all that, right? I was raised as you were, incredibly Catholic, and I respect the Catholic Church as I respect Buddhism and mosques and Hinduism and pantheism and people who don't believe anything, like I think there are so many ways to be in the world, and I think that all paths lead to the beyond and to a greater purpose and to, what you want your life to be and mean. And so that exploration has been really liberating for me, and I love the way that it's connected us. It hasn't been an exploration that has like delighted everyone in my journey.
That's true. That's very true.
But I feel like there came a time when I moved to New York City, actually, when I would talk about being Catholic, and I was already sort of toying with not being Catholic anymore at that point. I was 23, and like, listen, it gave me all of my foundations for like how to see the world, and so I'm so grateful for it. I don't like begrudge any of it, and I'm grateful for it. Like, my biggest spiritual influence when I was a kid was my great aunt Edna, and she was so Catholic, and it was all through, like the rosary and the novena, and like everything was about how do we like, use the talisman of Catholicism and the rituals of Catholicism to entreaty to God the things that we need or want to be, or, you know, how to be better or stronger or braver or gentler or whatever it is. It was all through Catholic means. And so I'm so grateful to her because she really shaped a pathway between me and the divine that is still the foundation of everything. I wouldn't call it Catholic anymore, but she's the one that showed me the pathway to that. So I'm so grateful for that. And she was also sort of transcendent. As Catholic as she was also very transcendent. I mean, one of her
I was just gonna ask. Yeah,
I can remember is like we would get to like the Saturday night mass, like after you go to confession.
Yep.
And she would kneel down and close her eyes and just be like, I love you, God. You know, that was her opener, and it was audible. And I was just like, that is the relationship that she has with the divine, is just like, I'm so happy to be here with you. Like, I love you, and I know that you love me. And so that sort of refreshing, holistic, like there's no barrier between us. It makes me think about like Walt Whitman, that idea of like every man is his own priest. Yeah. You like take the insight from anything, but you dismiss that which insults your own soul, and you distill the part that makes you feel connected to what divinity means to you. Like that is how I think I've forged spirituality post like strictly Catholicism.
So I feel like I guess my question here is, were you always into like living, something that me and my therapist talk about a lot is like living in the gray. I'm very much black or white, like it is or it isn't. And it's been a struggle living in the gray for the past couple of years, but it's helped me feel better. Like not be as mad, not be, and not necessarily not be as happy, but like more so not be as mad. But I feel like from whence I've known you, you've always lived in that gray. And it's funny because a good friend of ours, Antonio, like, and I work together really closely, and we
shout out to Antonio.
We would always say, like, she's so fake. There's no way that somebody could be that way for real. Like, she's so fake. And then we got to know you, and then it never fell, and we were just like waiting for the facade to drop, and then it didn't, and we were just like very confused about it. And then we're like, oh, maybe she just is this way. So what, have you always lived in the gray? Because can you teach us how to live in the gray?
Oh my God, that's so kind. I feel like, you know, it doesn't even feel gray to me. Like it feels like the spirituality and the idea of being connected to something beyond here feels more real to me than here. You know, I remember we have another common friend, Steve Lynch, who when one of the first things he does when he takes you into his home is like reads about your astrological sign, so he feels like he can better understand you. So he's like,
he's a Taurus too, is he?
He's a Gemini.
Oh.
And he's like, I don't really know that many Pisces. And he was like, okay, Pisces does not feel at home in the physical world.
That sounds right.
And then he repeated it. He was like, does not feel at home in the physical world. And he looked at me and he was like,
yeah, that sounds right.
That's what I said. I said that just like you did twice. I was like, that sounds right. That sounds right. And he was like, where do you feel at home?
Not here.
If not in the physical world. And I was like, not here. So what has made the most sense to me forever is the idea that like we chose it. It's like a school. Like, I don't know why, but our particular spirit said, I'm going to need refinement. I would like to learn more lessons, or maybe I have more to give. So I would like to go to the school, and I would like to work out some stuff. And that feels more real to me than the idea that day-to-day life is all there is. And I have no judgment for anybody who feels like day-to-day life is all there is, because I feel like it's rich enough, it's beautiful enough. If this is like the totality of the experience and the prayer, it's enough. But my sense of things has always been, I am visiting this to learn a lot of stuff, and what I am attached to is what's next and what's beyond, and that has always felt more real to me than this. So whatever I'm doing here that feels great or that feels like a facade or what have you, for me, it's just like participation in a simulation to learn as much as possible, to be as loving as possible, and ultimately to go back. But I feel like you can also experience it here. Like I don't know what it feels like to be there, but like I hope I haven't completely forgotten because I still feel connected to it here. Like every day, even when things feel shitty and dark and life is really difficult, like it's not like it's a non-issue, but it's like I don't feel disconnected from like a greater, vaster spiritual community. And it doesn't matter to me what it is or what we would call it. Like if it's ancestors, if there's like, what makes a lot of sense to me is the idea that there's like a soul group that you like travel with and return to and sort of process it with. And it may have your family in it and it may not, you know? I feel like a lot of chosen family
is in your soul
group because you like refined each other, you know, because you like agreed that you were going to work out some stuff here together or help each other at key moments. Think about how people just show up like when you needed them in your life. And sometimes they like weave in and out right when you need them, you know? And I just feel like we made agreements to support each other spiritually through this like big old school, you know? And I feel like when I say simulation, I don't mean to imply that it isn't real because I think it also has to feel real or we wouldn't learn the lessons. You know, like I feel like if we knew and remembered that it was school, when somebody died, we wouldn't be shaken to our core. And when we fell in love, we wouldn't be like starstruck. We would just be like, oh, right. I sketched this out. I need to learn this lesson. But like part of the gift is like the forgetting so that you can just like immerse in the lesson learning. But it to me feels like it's all for a greater purpose that is like this, you know, continual evolution, like never becoming, always striving to become and shed more skin and evolve further. Makes a lot of sense to me. And I think for some people that just happens on a human level and that's enough. And that is how they operate. And I respect it. And for me, there's a deep spiritual element to that because I just feel it. I feel connected to it. And it never felt great because when I was a child, and they would be like, you know, you have to like pray to God the Father or God the Son or whatever. I was always like, I don't really feel that part. But I felt the Holy Spirit. The idea of the Holy Spirit always felt very tangible to me. And I think for a lot of people that feels very gray and amorphous. But like that for me is like a very clear, like, yeah, like when I was a kid and it was like, what's God? I was like, I feel like God is like a blue spirit. You know, and I still feel that way. Like, it's just like, it's an energy field. It's a force. It's like Star Wars or whatever. You know what I mean? Like that makes the most sense to me that there's vibrations that you can elevate to and you can connect with other people who are on that vibration and you can bring stuff to you at that vibration. Like all that stuff just makes logical sense to me. And I know that there's like also science behind that, right? Like quantum physics and like it's not just, anyway, for me, it's spirit, but for everybody, it may not be spirit for everybody else. And I think that's okay. You know, I think like to each his own.
Yeah. Wow. That was big. So how do you then, because particularly with like work, people are very weird when it comes to that.
For sure.
Just like separate church and state.
Yeah.
So how do you, because I feel like something, and I wish I could explain it, but like I feel like you are really good at bringing spirituality and like that feeling of something bigger than us to work and using it to motivate people. And I think that for me is what was like felt fake was because like I felt motivated and I don't normally feel motivated. So I was just like, this is fake. She's manipulating me. Like I know how to manipulate people. Like she's manipulating the situation here. So how do you do that? Where you just like, you can like seamlessly bring it into other areas and not make it feel like church or
proselytizing.
Yeah.
I feel like, first of all, because like I can't separate it, like it is who I am, right? So like I can't turn it off. It's like what Brene Brown says about like vulnerability, right? Like it's like, well, she says it's like an on-off switch, so I guess you can, but like I can't.
And I think that's what it is. That's what it is that I can, And I was very confused when you wouldn't. And I was just like, what are you doing? You can turn it off. We're by ourselves.
Do you feel like you can anymore? I feel like your spirituality now is very pervasive for you. And I would wonder now if you could.
I don't think I can anymore. I think at this point, and it's funny because I like struggled a lot thinking about like us even like recording, because I did like a spirituality one, and even with that one I was just like, as I was recording I was just like, oh, I'm talking about tarot, I'm talking about astrology, like I already know like some people
stuff
that I know are gonna be like,
of course,
this is of the devil,
of course.
and so I think like the reason why I am now not able to separate it in the way that I used to before is, for me now, if God is real, which I think he is, then he made everything. And so then that means he made the tarot readers and the cards, and then he put those ideas into their heads to tell me in that moment, and then he put it in my head to ask at that. So it's just like, for me, it's just like, I don't see how that can be separate, because if he made it, then like it just, that's the thing, like they're all connected. And so I feel very comfortable accepting and believing and moving forward with things like astrology, with tarot, and still calling myself a Catholic, and like going to church with my mom when needed, and like taking communion and doing confession, because for me it's all one and the same. Yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like for me, it's just pursuit of this high alignment with my highest self. That's the goal, right? So it's like, if you're just trying to pursue this high vibe, there's a lot of roads to that, you know, and there's a lot of ways that people connect with the divine. And I want to learn about all of it. I'm not interested in the darkness, but I am not poo-pooing people who are. There are all kinds of roads.
Yeah.
For me, it's like anything that gives me more insight that I feel like is connected with the light, I want to hear about it. I may not take all of it in, but I want to know about it. I want that insight. And if it connects me, I also just love people. So if it connects me more with other people, then I really want to know about it. And I don't want to miss out on that, because I defined my spirituality too narrowly. That was my like biggest reason for leaving the Catholic Church ultimately, was I was like, I think you guys are narrowing God for me, right? You're saying it has to be just this, and I no longer believe that it's just this, you know? So that idea that like you're saying, I'm Catholic, but I take in information and vibration and belief from other sources resonates a lot with me, because I think Catholicism is beautiful, and I think other traditions and faiths are beautiful. Agreed. And I don't want to just limit the divine.
Agreed. It's something that people, I think, remember most about me, is that like whenever I meet somebody who is like of a new faith, I have a million questions.
Yeah.
I'm just like, well, who's your God? And like, what is it, like, why? And like this and that. Like, I specifically remember, and I will forever be indebted to her. There was this social worker at our school. Actually, she was a social worker, but she was actually a learning support teacher when I knew her, Lisa. And she was Jewish, and her husband was in school to be a rabbi at that time. So we would pass by the synagogue on Eastern, and she would already like know, like it's time to kick into like teacher, and I would like ask questions and she would tell me all these things, and that's how I knew like there's a difference between like the Jews that are here and then the Jews that are in Williamsburg, and like what is it in the hat, the shtreimel, and like I want it so bad, but I'm not a man, I can never have, and I'm just like, please, all I want is the shtreimel, you know? And it's just like I get so curious. I've never had like a good relationship with someone who's like Buddhist, you know, to like ask questions about that. So like that's the thing. Like I get really curious, and then like sometimes I get shy because I'm just like, I hope this is not taboo, asking these questions, or like embarrassing. And that's the thing that I also get frustrated when people are just like, well, that's taboo. It's just like, I just want to know more. Like this is like not even paying an homage, but like I'm interested. Like you should be happy that I'm interested instead of like wanting to villainize or criticize. But yeah, I get really curious when I run into someone who has like a different spiritual experience, because I know that I although I believe in God and Jesus and all of that, like that can't just be it. Like there has to be
other pathways,
more, and it's very funny because I think about like now, particularly in the reckoning that we've had recently with like the erasure of like Black people and people of color from like the history books, particularly in America. And then I think about how that's happening, and then I think about the Bible, and I'm just like, like how is this different than what it actually happened? And how will today be different in the quote unquote Bible of 3023? You know, like that's what I think about a lot, is like, how close is this to what actually went down in the time versus like how close is what's actually happening going to be reflected in the time of the future for us? Like I think about that a lot, which then fuels my anxiety, but that's another topic for another day.
But I also feel like it's great. Like that's another wonderful reason for like multiple perspectives and why they matter so much, because the more our diversity is our strength. The more people's take you get on like what spirituality is or how they move through the world, like I feel like the more that you understand this time period and what it means to be human and what it all means, like who has the market cornered on that? Like I can't, you know, it's as individual as like each person's expression. And like, even if people ascribe to a particular religion, I bet they practice it and conceive of it in different ways, you know? And I think it's important just to listen and learn as much as possible. And you were asking before about like, how do you bring that to work or not divorce that from work? And I feel like there's also this really beautiful universality to belief that like there are secular ways into it, you know? Like one of the biggest ways that I found as like an executive coach and a leadership coach and like a principal and superintendent coach has been around values, right? Like you can talk about what people value, and centering your coaching conversations or your work or your day around that elevates your day. It is like spirituality in your work, right? And like, again, it doesn't have to mean connection to divinity. It just means connection to a higher vibration than like this pile of paperwork in front of you, or than like somebody complaining to you, right? It's like, well, what I think about, you know, someone I love who I used to supervise, Molly, like her top two beliefs were belonging and empowerment. So like as a principal, when we're just bringing things back to belonging and empowerment, like of course her school's going to be beautiful and elevated if like she's staying in that headspace, if that's her mind frame, you know. Shingi Mutasa, love him, his school's vision was love, joy, excellence. If he is framing, right?
That's so beautiful.
If he's framing his work for children and families around, is this bringing us more love, more joy, and more excellence, that school is going like straight to the stars.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be something that you name or that you pigeonhole or that you even call spirituality. Like it's just a opportunity to call people to their highest and best self all the time.
I love that. I love that. That's really beautiful.
And of course you can do that at work.
How?
I hope we're doing that at work.
How?
I think this is one of the biggest ways, is like when you're coaching people, like it's an honor to get to walk with somebody on their journey, you know? So like reminding, we had like a thing called a page one, where like before we got into the work of the day, it was like a reconnection to what is our goal for being together? What do we value most? What is the vision for the school? And how are we getting there? You know, was like the first thing that we would talk about anytime we would meet. And you don't have to talk about it forever. It can be a couple of minutes. You can touch on one of the things, right? It's like, and we had questions on that, like, how are you practicing mindfulness? Like, I can see that like walking with your wife each night is a way that you stay connected to the things that matter most to you. Like, did you get to walk with Sarah last night? You know, how was it? What did you talk about? So that before we start talking about whatever like the shit on the plate is, you know, people are centered in this highest being that they've defined for themselves, the things they value most, the practices they do to ground them, the things that they're aspiring to that elevate them, the things that they most hope and want for their school and their lives that they've articulated here. We touch on that before we go anywhere else so that people can root in their highest and best self before tackling problems or challenges or just talking about the mundane.
Mm-hmm. And so that's going to come naturally to somebody like you or me because that's just how we operate. But you've coached a million people who that doesn't come naturally to. So if you have somebody who that it doesn't come naturally to, like, what's your first way of saying, like, okay, maybe do this or change this or ask this like this to have it be a start?
I feel like people just have to feel it. That's it. Like, it's not as much of talking as it is like, let's do the practice together. And then once they've experienced it, they want other people to experience it.
Yeah.
You know, because approaching your work like that elevates you. And then once you're activated in that way, you want to bring other people to that like vibration with you, you know? So, but it's like meditation. It's like when and I'll just say it for myself, when I am talking about meditating, that's all fine and good. But if I am doing it, it transforms my life.
Right.
This idea that you can take a very short time out of your day. I like to do it typically at the start, but like an afternoon is another really good time to get back in there. If like sometimes you get like energetically stuck or heavy by afternoon at work, and stressful work like we have, right? Like you can get really bogged down by lots of people's energy around you, and it just to stop and clear it out, you know, and like get back in there can make all the difference because you know, you're refusing to be like stuck or mired or like heavy with other people's stuff. You're like, no, I'm going to clear and get back in there and do more good and spread more love because I feel reconnected to whatever my highest truth is, you know?
Yeah. Do you have any like physical like talismans or like things that you kind of like use to ground yourself? Do you have any of those things?
For sure. I first of all, I just like them in general. I like holy objects a lot.
Yes.
Like kind of all. Yeah, I think they're really cool. So, but I had a spiritual teacher tell me once that like all of life, like every moment of your life is really just a choice between love and fear. Like I'm not big into binaries. Ooh. I'm a literacy person.
Wait,
right?
Say that again. Wait.
Every moment of your life is really just a choice between love and fear. And I have found that's really true. Yeah. Right? And like, so to get myself out of fear, you'll probably laugh, but the object that helps me most is a rock. It does not have to be a fancy rock. It can be it can be like a rock from the parking lot. When I was defending my dissertation, I was holding and like smoothing a big rock. When I graduated from 8th grade and my mom was like, what would commemorate this moment for you? I was like, can we get a giant rock for the backyard? Wow. Like there's something just so grounding to me about this and like magical to me about this like very mundane thing that is like sand and water and pressure and years made this. It was nothing and it became a thing. Sand and water, pressure and years. So it's like, I don't know, there's something very like holy and mystical and ordinary but beautiful and very grounding to me about a rock. So rocks are really important to me. Therefore crystals are too. I think they're fascinating. And so I have lots of those. But I'm into like whatever, like when I went to India, I saw these like unbelievably simple but beautiful prayer beads that meant a lot to me. Got them, like rosaries, yes, right? Like I have a big old thing of sage. I have a whole little like thing in my house. There's some candles. There's some Stids of Stevie candle because Stevie Nicks forever. There's sage. There's rocks. There's, you know, because I just feel like collecting these items, I feel like holy items are so cool. And I, like you, I'm just curious. I want to learn more about them. I want to experience as many as I can, but like nothing does it for me more than like a plain old rock. What Errol talks about a lot, one of my closest friends who, you know, we joke about like being like light workers, like that's like we came to do that, right?
For sure. Both of you, for sure. Oh my God. God.
But you do, like we came to do the work of the light. And he talks a lot about remembering. So I feel like these talismans like help us remember and stay connected to something greater than ourselves. Like that's probably why, for me, that's why it's like nice to have it with me, is like, because at any moment I can still access a connection to divinity.
Yep. That's real. Well, is there any last words that you want to share with the world about spirituality and finding it for yourself?
I think just the hope, like finding practices that center you in hope, that you get up in the morning with the belief that's what's next is what's best, and like what's around the corner for you is about to be like magical and powerful and positive and wonderful and uplifting. Like no matter what you're going through, like there is something around the corner that's about to transform that. Like that belief in sort of magic and goodness, like that has given me so much hope in my life. And so I feel like that belief, that singular belief, has helped me the most. So I feel like that's like the best like advice I could give.
Beautiful. We'll do a little closing cheers. And boom, cheers. There's that. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Mugful of Mimosas with Liz, and we will catch you on the next one. Thanks for listening to this week's Mugful of Mimosas with Liz. If you can, please leave me a 5-star review on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you listen, and follow me on Instagram or TikTok at LizLaughLoveNYC. See you next week, and make sure that your cup stays full. Bye!